Thanks for staying up later. You may recognize Gabriel Byrne from Point of No Return, which is playing, as they say, at a theater near you, or from Siesta, Dark Obsession, Miller's Crossing, films he's done in the past. But let me start by reading a quote of yours, and I'll go on the assumption that it's accurate. "I'm not a gregarious guy. It's amazing that I'm an actor. I can't stand attention in a public place, and this is ridiculous in a business that pays you to get noticed." Does that mean you're uncomfortable with it, or just amused by the irony of it?
I went through being amused by the irony of it, and then I came back to being bewildered by my position. They say that, you know, acting is the shy man's revenge. And I think it's kind of true, because an awful lot of actors that I know are very, very shy people. I don't like a fuss being made about me. I don't like being singled out in any way for attention. It makes me uncomfortable. Me. But the difference is that when you're playing a character, you know, you somehow have the freedom to be that person and not to be yourself. So what you might endure or be unable to endure as a person, you can endure as a character.
So without playing street corner psychologist here, does it really serve a useful personal purpose then? Because might there not be another channel for it if you didn't become an actor?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, first of all, I think that the function of the actor is, like, real important, you know? The actor channels a lot of the stuff that we tend to ignore and sweep under the carpet and so forth. I mean, that's our function, to be kind of channels for what writers have to say about the predicament of the world and our place in it. But I feel that I could quite happily one day just abandon it all and just not do it anymore, you know? It's a hard thing to do, to act, you know? I've heard people say that it's not, but I find it myself pretty difficult.
Is there some aspect of it that's most difficult for you?
Well, let's say, for example, this is probably an extreme example, but let's say you're playing a character who's profoundly sad or has to deal with an extreme tragic or sad situation in his life. Well, that requires you to go into that area in your own life, which can be really painful. And I remember doing a film in France, and I had to play, my sister had just died. She died at a very young age, and I was really cut up about it, and I was trying to get over it and trying to heal, you know. And I had to do this film where I had to deal with somebody dying in it. And I really resented having to be in that position. I have to go back into that again. And the question that you asked, I wish I could say that I found it therapeutic, but I don't really. That's not to say, I mean, maybe I'm being too grim about it. There are moments of tremendous highs as an actor. I mean, real amazing highs that you get. And then there are moments that you wonder why you're doing it, but then maybe that's true of most jobs.
What's the best moment you feel you've ever had on film?
That's really difficult. I think the best moment I've had on screen is in a movie that's yet to come out. I feel it's the best part I've played. I felt that I got in touch with a part of myself as an actor that I hadn't reached before, because I think that one of the things you have to do as an actor is to keep breaking down barriers and to keep forcing yourself to get better and to move on. And I think in this particular movie, which is called A Dangerous Woman, which I did with Barbara Hershey and Deborah Winger, I think I reached a part of myself as an actor that I hadn't done before, and that's tremendously satisfying.
Now, when will that be released?
In October of this year.
Now, that's as distinct from the movie you did with your wife, Ellen Barkin, which is, I'm told, an Irish Western that comes out sometime this summer.
Yeah. Well, the movie that I did with Ellen is called Into the West, which was a movie that I co-produced. I was attached to the script for 4.5 years. It's set among the gypsies in Ireland, and it's a magical fairy tale that involves a white horse who comes from under the sea and takes these two children on a magical journey across Ireland. It's been released in Ireland only, and it's been the #1 movie there. And tremendous satisfaction, because nobody wanted to make the film. They just said, who cares about white horse, two kids? I really believed in the film. I really believed in everything it had to say about family, about the gypsies of Ireland who are marginalised and discriminated against. And it's a movie full of humour and pathos and magic and mystery, you know. So I was real happy to do that. And Ellen plays a very small part in it. But we needed somebody who was known on a mass, level in America. And because I was a producer, she was helping me to come up with a list of possible candidates. And then I looked at her just across the table one day and I said, well, why don't you do it? She said, I thought you'd never ask me. Why do you keep travelling, Kathleen?
In the blood. Out there, you're alone. You're part of nothing. What have we in the end? Only each other.
So I asked her, and that's how she got involved.
Her work has received a lot of acclaim, and she's a very interesting actress. So I'm not confusing craft with stardom, but she has both. Mm-hmm. She is a superb craftsperson, if that's the proper parlance. Craftsman sounds okay to me.
Yeah.
And she's also someone with a star's presence. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, she's a little bit different from you, because you don't see yourself as having that sort of star's presence.
Well, there's several things there in what you said, and that's very true, your description of her. On the one hand, she's a great actress. She's also a star. There's a division in Hollywood, I think, sometimes among actors, and stars, that's real defined. There are some stars who are not great actors and who get paid millions and millions of dollars simply to be themselves. And there are great actors who are not stars and who can't open movies or are not in the studio's eye as people who can successfully sell a movie. But there are some people who bridge both worlds, and she's one of them.
How much of a laugh did you get out of the headline on that New York Magazine profile of you a few years ago when Miller's Crossing came out? And the headline, I came across it doing the research for this, was, "Will Miller's Crossing make a star of Mr. Ellen Barkin?"
I looked at it and I said, this is like idiotic, because it could be construed as sexist, I mean, I'm very different to Ellen. I have a different career. I would not like Ellen to be known as Mrs. Gabriel Byrne for any reason, She is who she is, and I am who I am. And I thought it was an easy, cheap kind of a jibe. But you know what? I read these things and they go in one ear and out the other, because I don't allow these things to affect me, because you can't have that stuff floating around in your head, or eventually you might start believing it.
How much does the fact that you weren't an actor until your late 20s or early 30s, how much does that affect your perspective on all this?
Well, on the one hand, throughout my 20s, I missed all the parts that I could have played when I was 20s. On the other hand, I don't know that I could have endured it being 20. I mean, I didn't know anything about myself when I was in my 20s. And I had to live that kind of life that I did, because that was the only kind of life I knew. I worked in loads of different jobs. I'd never been outside the country, Ireland, that is. I had no real interest in acting, though I liked the theatre and I liked movies. And I thought my life was pretty set, I was going to be a teacher, an archaeologist, and, just go on and retire and so forth. But the weird thing is that none of it worked out like that. And I didn't take any decisions to be anything. I fell into acting completely by accident, just as I fell out of archaeology by accident. There's a random destiny to my life, which I find interesting to observe. And it's given me a perspective on this. I look at this business and I see people with millions and millions of dollars who are saying, why haven't I got $5 million more, when actually they have enough money to bail out a small third world country. I see the effects of fame on people. I see what Hollywood does to actors. It keeps them in a permanent state of competition, where everybody's looking over their shoulder all the time. Where the idea is bred that it's never good enough. You have to do more. You have to be better. You have to be bigger. You have to be greater. All those things I find pretty frightening to have to deal with, because they don't belong to the real world, At the same time, I love Hollywood. I love being there. I love going in there to experience it. I love working there, and I get a great kick out of it. I really do. I enjoy Hollywood, but I'm also extremely aware of the other side of it.
So if there's a kind of random destiny about it which you happily accept, and if you were as open to the possibilities as you seem to have been, to go from a pastry chef, I read at one time, a teacher, an archaeologist, to leave that after having invested time in it to become an actor, is it possible that something else would come up that would spark your interest and you'd find a fourth or fifth career?
Well, I've already moved into the area of producing, as I told you. I produced Into the West, and I'm now in the middle of producing a film with Daniel Day-Lewis and Emma Thompson, which I'm doing in Dublin at the moment, which is exciting me hugely. I'm involved in I write a column for a magazine every week, and I'm developing a real interest in writing, which I've always had. I mean, I've always had an interest in writing. These things are really exciting to me. I mean, I find it exciting being an actor. I find it exciting being a producer. And I must say that I'm extremely happy with the way things are going at the moment, because there's the possibility for development, you know. I never thought I'd be a producer 2 years ago. 10 years ago, I never thought I'd be in America. 15 years ago, I never thought I'd be in a movie.
Principal Health Care of Florida.
Gabriel Byrne, would you say Point of No Return moves you closer to the mainstream, whether that's your intention or not, kind of an action film?
Yeah, Point of No Return is a very high-profile commercial Hollywood movie. And the kind of movies that I've done over the years tend to have been low-budget European art house movies. And I've always wanted to do an action picture, and this was one that I thought offered a good role and a really great cast, and a tried and tested story.
I need a woman for this one, Maggie. It's the kind of job you were trained for. I want you to do 3 things. Number 1, impersonate his girlfriend so that you can get into his house. Number 2, take the disk that he's been sending the data on, and then destroy his computer. And number 3, I want you to take him out.
Plenty of violence. What in your mind, in this script and in this approach, takes it away from a mindless violence or a strictly commercial violence and redeems the story?
Well, I think that, first of all, you're dealing with a character, the central character, played by Bridget Fonda, is a woman who's an action hero, and usually that's a man. A man who doesn't have to deal with any emotions, whereas she has to deal with her emotions and her you know, she falls in love and she has ambivalent feelings about what she does, and she's also the kind of woman who develops in an arc from being she kills a policeman to somebody who develops a conscience. The violence in the movie, I find, is kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of larger than life, and it's, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt, have a kind of a smile at it, you know.
What film that you've done has drawn the most profound reaction from people? I'm not talking about recognition, but I mean a thoughtful reaction. You might sit down next to someone on an airplane, they've seen that film, and their comments are the most interesting and get through to you the most.
I suppose I'd have to say there, Miller's Crossing. I remember sitting on an airplane once, and it was on the thing, on the screen, and there was a guy sitting beside me who was a businessman, and the movie is about gangsters, and at the end of it he turned to me and he said, "That's the best movie about business I've ever seen." Because it really was about all those things that big business is about. Forget that these guys were gangsters. It was about loyalty, betrayal, profits, losses. I mean, it was a gangster movie, but it was also a movie about his world, which truly amazed me because I had thought it was a gangster movie, a funny kind of offbeat gangster movie, and here was this guy totally relating to it as if it was a... I think that movie, a lot of people... I think if something is really great, really worthwhile, people see things in it that they want to see.
Your character is especially interesting in that, yeah, it's about gangsters, but your guy is ambivalent. He's a thinker in this world of gruff action, and that made it, I would guess, tougher to play.
It was a difficult role to play because he was a guy who never revealed his hand to anybody, so you had to play the enigma of him. And to play enigma on screen is well, I think it's very difficult anyway, because what you reveal, it has to be exactly the right thing. Is that you tread a thin line between boredom and the piquing the interest of the audience, you know?
Listen to me, Leo. Last night made you look vulnerable. You don't hold elected office in this town. You run it because people think you run it. Once they stop thinking it, you stop running it.
Jesus, Tom, it sounds like a bad break for me. I wasn't killed.
I mean it, Leo. Start taking Costas seriously.
I know. Retreat to win, give up Bernie. That'll solve all our problems.
Won't anymore, I'll grant you that. But going toe-to-toe with a psychopath will get you nowhere. It'll force people to choose sides just when you're looking shaky.
I liked that character because what he didn't reveal was as important as as the little bits that he did.
You actually were at least an apprentice chef, right? In London, your older brother was a chef, and you're working with him, and then some disaster happened.
Well, I served ice cream to the boys went around the kitchen one day that Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy was in the dining room, and I forget what she had for the main course, but she ordered cassata for the dessert. And because I was put in charge of the ice creams, I was determined to make a good impression on everybody by having the ice cream absolutely ready for the moment when they called for it. I would be there with my cassata. And I put it up on a shelf to make sure that it would be in a state of advanced readiness. And about 3 minutes later, there was an explosion on the shelf, and I found that I'd actually put it on the hot plate. And there was disaster, and Mrs. Kennedy Onassis never got her ice cream. So perhaps she's had thoughts over the years, you know, she thinks back to that day and wonders why she never got her cassata. Well, it was because of me.
And what were the consequences to you?
The consequences to me were, because this was my second foul-up, I had been told by my brother, who was a kind of a fascist kind of chef, really, as he had to be in that he said, anything that comes over here, you wash it. Don't go near any ice cream. Just wash anything that comes over here. And by the way, tidy up that coat, because I had a long brown coat that was always stained and everything, because I had been demoted to kitchen porter. And he said to me, wash everything that comes over here. So I did. And I remember one enormous cauldron that I staggered to the back passage with and poured out into the street, and said to myself, I remember saying to myself at the time, well, there wasn't much to wash in that, it's kind of pretty clean, you know. And about 2 minutes later, I heard my brother preparing for a wedding for 250 people saying, "Where's the cauliflower?" And a deathly silence ensued before somebody said, "I think Gabriel was near the cauliflower." And I think the cauliflower is gone, Tom. And I was fired. Unceremoniously, I was booted out. So I took my brown coat and I've knocked on the doors of various hotels in London, but I think word had spread, and my picture was obviously in every kitchen in every hotel in London, saying, if this man applies for a job as a kitchen porter, please do not let him inside the door.
A couple more things. You actually didn't just study archaeology. You were a practicing archaeologist. Do you ever dig up anything of note?
I used to think that archaeology was a romantic, you know, it was a romantic occupation, and that I would discover the equivalent of King Tutankhamun's tomb. And I never discovered anything, because the reality of being an archaeologist is that you're down in a trench with a toothbrush in the rain, scraping at things. But one day I did discover a tiny shoe which belonged to a child from the 10th century. And I was the first one to hold that and touch that in 1,000 years, and that was pretty amazing. And that was an addictive thing, I remember thinking, because I was furiously scraping away for the next 9 months, and I never found anything else.
But the shoe was intact?
The shoe was intact.
This is in Ireland?
Yeah, yeah.
And shockingly enough, a little picture of Buster Brown and that little dog friend of his inside. Just so you aren't left tossing and turning, Buster Brown's dog's name was Tig. And you can see Gabriel Byrne along with Bridget Fonda in Point of No Return, and we've reached that point ourselves. See you later. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.